What do you suggest to them so that they start untangling these feelings of negative or difficult
Well,
emotions?
suppose I'm driving my car, and I imagine that in India, there aren't always perfect drivers. And suppose someone cuts you off and some people will jam on their horn and scream and so on. Well, if you look at that and appreciate, that didn't solve the problem. It made everybody in my car miserable. It made me miserable. The person in the other car isn't going to change the way they drive. So why do something that doesn't work?
So folks, you have tuned into TGV and hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, the world's only quadrilingual podcast at this moment of recording, and we are trying to embark into multiple languages as we speak, and here we embark on transformative conversations for a better future, and we want to simplify and amplify your journey to success. I'm your host Navin Samala, dedicated to making the world a better place by bringing you wisdom through valuable discussions with experts designed to simplify and amplify your success. And thank you so much for tuning in. So folks, we are joined by Dr. Ron Sneo, Pediatrician and Clinical Faculty Member at Dartmouth College, Giesel School of Medicine, empowers individuals to lead happier and more meaningful lives through practical, evidence-based tools. Dr. Ron is known for his award-winning teaching and guides others in healing childhood hurts, building self-compassion, and finding purpose. So today we are going to have an interesting conversation with Dr. Ron on the topic at hand, the science of happiness and real-life tools for a fulfilling life. But before we get started, here is an exciting twist as always. Let us tickle our guest's brain first. So Dr. Ron, get ready for a rapid-fire round of random words. I'll mention a few, and I would love to hear the first thing that comes to your mind in response without thinking much. If you're ready, let's get started.
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay, I love your energy. So here comes the first word from my side. Curiosity.
It's what life is about.
Future.
The future is now.
Universe.
And in the future. Big.
Universe.
Big and loving.
Leadership.
Leadership is important when done. It's important when done correctly.
Okay, and then success.
Success is being yourself.
Compassion.
That's what makes us human.
Healing.
It's what we all want. It's what we all strive for.
Happiness.
Unlimited.
Emotions.
They can be guides and friends.
Self-talk.
It's a pep talk that goes on constantly.
Here comes the next one. Growth.
That's what it is to be human also, to grow.
And the last one is empathy.
Empathy can be hard. It's opening your heart to someone, but you need to have some kind of barriers so you don't get swept away by somebody else's difficulties.
Spot on responses, Dr. Ron. I think you are a pro in rapid fire round. I loved it. I loved all the amazing responses. So crisp answers. Thank you so much for participating in the first rapid fire round. And there is one more rapid fire round toward the end of the episode. So stay tuned. And Dr. Ron, hearty welcome to the Guiding Voice. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing well. I appreciate it.
All right. So we'll begin with your guiding voice. Talk to us. Who is your guiding voice?
It's love. It's an inner light.
Okay. And now
it's before you act, or something or do something, you think, does this make my inner light brighter?
So powerful. Very nice. And then we'll go to your success mantra. Share with us the top 3 things that have contributed to your success so far.
I knew I was loved, and I also tried to be the best I could be. I tried to serve others and be there for others and enjoy others. And I was independent. It's pretty practical.
Independent, practical, and most importantly, you have served others. Anything else?
No, just be yourself. We're all different.
Superb. All right. So we'll get into the topic. What inspired you to focus on happiness as a core part of personal health?
I think when I was growing up, I knew that I was loved and I was innately happy. It's not that I had a lot. It's not that I was given a lot, but and then I saw other people suffer, and that always bothered me. And so I always tried to figure out how I can help other people, and came to some ideas that made me want to retire from my practice and write a book. So I just finished a book that will be published soon that's called Bigger Hearted, a retired pediatrician's prescriptions for living a happier life.
I'm looking forward to the release of the book, and I'm sure it has lots of insights which are going to add a lot of value to the readers. Now let's move to the next question. So Dr. Ron, can you share some common misconceptions about happiness and its requirements? What do people think in general?
Well, The biggest misconception is that it's limited. And that is based on thinking that happiness has to do only with material things, with getting a raise, getting a new car. But it's not. We feel good when we set up guides that we want to achieve, if we set up goals to achieve. And we also feel good through our connections. Now, if we want something in the outer world, if we want more money, we take certain steps to reach it. To open ourselves to love, to sit in the space of love and relationships, there we work on ourselves inwardly and open ourselves to let it flow in. So it's completely different. And we live in this space of love and of caring about others. Then we just live a happier life.
So I'd like to talk about one instance of a material thing. Okay. You said like people have that misconception saying that if they possess a particular materialistic thing, then they are happy. But let's assume somebody bought a car. Okay. Their first car. In India, at least car is a luxury. It is not like a necessity, unlike United States. Okay, let's assume if somebody bought their first car, they're extremely happy. But next day, maybe their neighbor has brought a better model car. Then all this entire happiness melts down, right?
Now, Naveen, a very interesting thing that you make with that is that two people can have the same car, but it's not like a container that holds a certain amount of liquid. It's the attitude we bring to it that makes us happy. So somebody can have an old car and love it, and somebody can have a brand new car. Enjoy what you have and be grateful.
Thanks for highlighting that. And also, this self-compassion is difficult for many, right? So, what are some beginner steps that you recommend to be self-compassionate?
If you saw a 5-year-old child sitting on a step and crying, you would naturally go over, find out what happened, and try to make the child feel better. If we can do that with a complete stranger, we can do that with ourselves. It's to know that love and compassion, even if we didn't receive it in childhood, we can still attain it. It didn't have to come from our parents or our caregivers. Like there's something universal and something transcendent, and we can plug into that. We can learn how to plug into that.
I love the metaphor. Super. All right. So now let's talk about the self-talk. All right. People engage in negative self-talk a lot. Right? So how can they recognize and stop negative self-talk before it affects them?
It takes some inner work. Suppose you were a soccer player, a football player, as you say in your part of the world, or any sport or music stuff. If you liked playing it, you would practice. You would take lessons. You wouldn't expect to be excellent right away. So in the same way, if we want to be ourselves and heal our inner hurts, we also have to practice. And I think away from life, we practice sports away from the game. If we do self-talk, say, while we're in bed, and review the fact that the reason we feel bad about ourselves is because what we were told as a child. Well, that's not really who we are. So we have to learn to get rid of that and to have some compassion for our former selves and give ourselves a break. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be us.
Yeah, at times even I feel like I try to be productive all the time. Times in case if on a particular day, if I'm not able to accomplish certain things, right?
So you have to know that it's normal to not be perfect. If it were easy, when we were perfect, we'd all be saints and we wouldn't be living on the earth anymore.
Right.
Now, if you picked up a musical instrument, even if you had great talent, you wouldn't all of a sudden be wonderful. Why should we expect we'll be perfect in life? Now, another thing that I do is I do a morning routine, and this anybody can do. And before I wake up, and before I open my eyes, if I set my alarm, I'll set it for 10 minutes early. I'll review my day and look quickly at the practical details of the day. Then I'll look more closely and see the various things I need to remember, like to take lunch to work. And then I look at it one more time and think, how do I want to be? How do I want to be at this office meeting? How do I want to be with my kids? How do I want to be at breakfast? And then at the end of the day, before I close my eyes and go to sleep, I'll take a look at the highlights and say, how did I do? I didn't want to fight with my ex when I met her at the football game in the afternoon. How did I do? And then see where I succeeded and where I didn't, and tomorrow's another day.
That's a great tip, actually. I think can be easily followed. Thank you for sharing that. And now let's talk about the difficult emotions. Like many people struggle with difficult emotions. So what do you suggest to them so that they start untangling these feelings of negative or difficult emotions?
The first thing that happens, suppose it turns out that our child came home from school and was miserable and unhappy. Maybe that's what happened. And then we would talk to them, and we'd probably get to the point being miserable and unhappy probably isn't the best way to handle it. Our difficult emotions occur when life doesn't work out the way we wished it would work out. So we can dissect it and look at it and say, what happened? Not during the time, but that evening when we're in bed. we can look at it and say, what happened? What triggered me? Oh, I let so-and-so's good looks get to me and I was miserable after that. Or I let the fact somebody said something to me get under my skin. Okay, I can remember not to do that. But if we realize that most of our difficult emotions are because things didn't work out the way we wished, and that's too bad. Life doesn't always work out the way we wish. I look at things from a practical standpoint. Suppose I'm driving my car, and I imagine that in India, there aren't always perfect drivers. And suppose someone cuts you off and some people will jam on their horn and scream and so on. Well, if you look at that and appreciate, that didn't solve the problem. It made everybody in my car miserable. It made me miserable. The person in the other car isn't going to change the way they drive. So why do something that doesn't work?
Yeah, I think that's a thought-provoking question. Wonderful. And also let's talk about the connections part in terms of what will be your advice for those who wants to build and sustain meaningful connection.
Well, if you think about yourself, if there are people with whom you have meaningful connections, they like you and they care about you. So that's the start. And so it's liking someone and caring about them and seeing past the wrapping paper, seeing the present inside. They might have their faults and their difficulties, and all of their faults and shortcomings came out of their childhood and their experiences of life. We don't have to harp on those. We can see past those. And so that if we really meet the other person and see life the way they see life and ask, how can we support them? How can we help them? How can we be there for them? We'll have incredible relationships.
Got it. And also you talk about finding meaning as central to happiness, right? So how can someone start this journey in case if they feel lost?
Well, I think there are two ways that we think. We get told that we think with the intellect, but that's only half of thinking. The other part of thinking is thinking with our hearts, with being able to experience somebody else's perspective and saying, how can we support them? How can we be there for them? If we do that, we'll have meaning in our lives. So here it is, going to visit your old cranky grandmother, and you want to get a sense, instead of getting stuck in her criticisms of you, you ask her about how her life was, what she was like as a kid, and you care about her. You'll have a great relationship with her. My grandmother once taught me that. She was alone and really pretty cranky. And when I was in college one day, I brought food to share with her. And I decided that I would just ask about her life. And when she told me how miserable she was, then I asked more about it. And we went on like this. And after a while, she said, that's enough talking about me. How are you? And we went on and had the most unexpected, wonderful dialogue.
So these are all some tiny nuggets of wisdom, but so powerful. And I'm really enjoying the conversation. And that brings me to my next question, Dr. Ron. So are there any small daily practices or habits you recommend for reducing stress and worry?
So one is going through the day the way that I mentioned. Another one is to realize I'm not perfect. Yeah. I'm really not perfect. And I'm not alone. Love is with me all the time. And I can only do my best. And if we had a child who just tried to do their best, we wouldn't care about their success. We'd be impressed with how they try to do their best. They'll figure it out in the end. I thought about work in a certain way. We spend so much time at work, and lots of times we're not happy. And so if we first said to ourselves, why do I have this job? It could be it pays my bills. It could be it's the career I want. And then you can say, okay, what are my obligations here? There are two parts. I can be the best coworker possible. What would it be like? Why would somebody like to work with me? And then if I have any service part where I interact with people, I think, how can I make their day better? If we do that, we'll like work, even if it's a terrible job that we want to leave. I mean, that's what you do with your podcast. You think, how do I have good guests? How do I bring out the conversation? How do I make it so my audience is interested? And that's why your podcast is so interesting.
So that is always running on my mind in terms of, okay, what diverse topics can I cover and what are some interesting areas to explore? And how can I find great guests? That's always there. And you nailed it.
Yeah. And you do all that for your audience.
Absolutely.
So that's wonderful.
Wonderful. And this has been really fabulous conversation. And it's time for us to add some more spice and some more excitement to the episode.
Hello, I'm Steve Ahern, one of the judges of the Asia Podcast Awards. I'm interrupting this episode to let you know that you're listening to an award-winning podcast. This podcast won its category in the 2024 Podcast Awards, so you know you're listening to quality. Enjoy your listening experience, and congratulations to the team who created this award-winning podcast for you.
So if you're ready, we'll dive into a series of intriguing second rapid fire round.
Okay, doke. I don't promise anything, but okay.
All right, I love your energy. And here comes my first bullet. If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, what would it say?
Love one another.
Okay, and then can you describe yourself in just one word?
Caring.
What is one book you recommend for somebody on personal growth?
The book I just wrote. Sorry.
Okay, what is some other book? One more book if you want to ask.
A theologian named Martin Buber wrote a book called I and Thou. And he talks about a relationship that's an I-it relationship where you use an object, and an I-thou relationship where you simply connect. And that connection, he thinks, is the meaning of life.
One thing you wish you had known earlier in life.
I was thinking about that. Nothing. I wouldn't have changed anything. It all worked out incredibly well.
I love it. And what's your favorite way to de-stress in 10 minutes or less?
Running.
Okay. And what is a simple way people can boost their mood instantly?
By appreciating they're not perfect and don't have to be perfect, and they're not being judged.
What is the morning ritual that you can't skip?
Yeah, that's the one where I describe. The other part that I do, this is an interesting one. I surround myself with love. So if you can think of a time when you experienced love, it could even have been petting your dog.
Right.
Bring that feeling, drop what brought the feeling, and then fill yourself with that. If it's from reading a passage in a spiritual book, capture the feeling that you get and then bring that to you. And so I'll do that in the morning and in the evening.
Superb. And Dr. Ron, here is the last one for the second rapid fire. What is one electronic gadget or a fantasy gadget that you like to see or invent other than a time machine or a teleportation device?
Okay, so let's suck all the dirt out of the air, the poisons out of the waters, out of the ground, and let's start all over again.
Wow, super, very nice. I think that has a purpose as well. Wonderful. I wish somebody really invents that kind of device, and that's so interesting. And after that amazing second rapid fire round, let's flip back to the mainstream. And Dr. Ron, what will be your one piece of advice for parents raising emotionally resilient children?
It's to love them, and not based on what they do, but based on who they are, and then try to be appropriate for who they are and support them. But the love is unwavering. You know, it's interesting. I spent time in the newborn nursery and in the intensive care newborn nursery. Parents love their babies no matter what. And if the baby is sick, needs heart surgery when they get born, the love for them is even greater. These babies didn't earn the love. It's just natural to how you feel towards children. And if your parents didn't love you, if they weren't good parents, that love is still there. It's yours.
Amazing. And I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, as I said earlier, and I would love to host you again in future. And how is your experience being hosted on the Guiding Voice podcast?
I can't believe it's over so quickly. It seems like we've spoken for 5 minutes. Wonderful. Your questions are wonderful. You're engaging. I enjoyed it very much.
Same here. I loved your responses. Those are really crisp, at the same time so powerful.
At my website, biggerhearted.com, find the introduction to the book and read it for free. And there are some other interesting things. So it's biggerhearted.com. Pop on over.
Absolutely. So for those of you who are watching or listening to this episode, you'll find the link to Ron's website, biggerhearted.com, in the show notes. Check it out, and also go through the introduction of his book, and if possible, grab a copy. I'm sure he has tons of insights to offer which are going to make us a better individual. All right. So thank you so much, Dr. Ron, once again. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I wish your book becomes the bestseller, and you need to join us again talking about the success of your book in future.
That would be wonderful. That's great. I enjoyed it, and all kinds of success. I look forward to listening to future podcast episodes of yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Friends, that was our episode with Dr. Ron Sneo. And before we jump into the fun trivia section, we have a quick request. If you have enjoyed the conversation and found it useful, please share with at least 3 of your friends or colleagues who would also like TGV, the guiding voice. So spread the knowledge and help others grow just like you have been growing. Now it's time for us to hop into the trivia segment. Having had amazing conversation about happiness, de-stressing, and many other insights which are going to make us a better person, I thought I would present you 2 unconventional approaches to happiness. First is practicing awe for perspective shifts. You know, research shows that experiencing awe, whether from nature, art, or even contemplating the vastness of the universe, can increase happiness, because awe makes people feel smaller in comparison to the world around them, and which can shift focus away from everyday worries. And this perspective change leads to greater life satisfaction as people feel part of something larger than life and larger than themselves. Second is do good, feel good, which is the unexpected power of giving. Studies reveal that giving small, unexpected gifts or favors can significantly boost happiness levels even more than receiving them. And this approach is not just about big acts. It's the smaller, more spontaneous gestures like paying for a stranger's coffee or leaving a note of encouragement that tend to create positive ripple effect. These acts of kindness stimulate the brain's reward pathways, enhancing our mood and fostering a stronger sense of connection. So these are the two things which I wanted to share from the trivia perspective. But don't go away. I would love to hear from you. Are there any other unconventional ways of finding happiness if you have practiced, or if you have found it useful? Do let me know. If you're watching this episode on YouTube, you can comment there, or if you have found this episode on some audio platforms or social media platforms, you can comment there as well. I would be eagerly looking forward to read what you said. Alright, so that's it for today, folks. Thank you so much once again for tuning in and also for being part of our awesome TGV family. So until next time, take care, stay inspired, and remember, the best is yet to come. Goodbye for now. See you all in the next episode with another amazing guest. Take care. Love you all. Bye bye.